Hey everyone, it's Tariq, and I'm taking a walk on Memorial Day, and it's a beautiful day out in Virginia. And I wanted to update everybody that I got vaccinated like a lot of other people in the United States, and I wanted just to share my experience. Basically, it was very easy signing up on the website and answered a bunch of questions, and when it was time to get vaccinated, I got vaccinated. And since then, it's been simple to get around, although it's taken a while to adjust to, not having to wear masks. But I wear a mask a lot of times when I'm going out in public places, and a lot of other people do. So that's the good news. Are things back to normal? No, they're not. Things are very familiar, but whatever we call normal, that's gone. Things are different, and they're going to be different. It's going to take a while till we feel more comfortable, to put it simply. So I want to make this video because we're at different stages all over the world with COVID-19 and availability of vaccines. The United States, for the most part, has largely been vaccinated. People that want to get vaccines have been vaccinated. And there's still others that can be. About 20% of people that watch this video are in the United States. 80% are in over 60 other countries. So thank you for watching. I love you everywhere, in the US, all around the world. So I wanted to tell basically four stories, I think, related to getting vaccinated. And I know that may sound unusual, and this is largely a photography channel, and I'm not going to be talking about photography in this episode. So this is life. This is life, where we are, where we're going. And so if you're just looking for photography, this is not the video for you. But if you want to just kind of check in, understand how things are with the getting vaccinated, what life is like, and here's some of my thoughts, please stick around. This is going to be a long one. So the first story I want to tell you is about an 18-year-old girl in World War II, an American girl who was working for, it was probably called the Department of War at the time, now it's the Department of Defense, and eventually was at the Pentagon. And she was a civilian, and she worked for an officer in the Army, and he used to make her take apart rifles and put them back together just like soldiers. And she had to do this with many different types of weapons, and she used to cry just having to do it. And the reason for that was he wanted her to be familiar with all the different springs in the gun and all the different parts. So when an order came in for 3,000 or 30,000 springs for a rifle, that she sent the correct 30,000 springs to wherever they were needed. And this used to make her cry. But later, she was grateful for it. She understood why he did that. And she didn't understand at the time. She didn't like it. So fast forward to the second story. Some volunteer work I did. And these stories are going to jump around. Volunteer work was in college. I'm switching my hand around. So volunteer work was in college. I worked as a peer health educator in my early 20s with other students. And I'm not going to get into the details of what we covered, but the point I want to share here is basically I've been interested in public health for a long time, and I've actually done things about it as a volunteer. It was non-medical, and we talked to groups about different health issues. So that's really all I want to say about that one. So, okay, fast forward from World War II, 50 years. I think it was actually 51 years. So, actually fast forward from the Normandy invasion, and this will make sense why I'm talking about this. Normandy invasion, 1944, June. Several countries involved in that. And decades later, Not the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but the 90s. 50 years later, I'm walking through a shopping mall. I got my food at the food court, and I was looking for a place to sit. And the only seat that was available was next to this little old lady. And for whatever reason, I thought I didn't want to sit next to her because I thought she was going to start talking to me, and I wasn't in the mood to be social. And I walked up and down the food court a couple of times, and that was the only seat available, so I eventually went down and sat down. I figured, all right, if she doesn't talk to me in 5 minutes, I'm kind of clear. And I looked at my watch, sat down. Less than 2 minutes later, she starts talking to me. So, so much for that plan. And, for some reason I thought it might have been intrusive with her, asking me questions about myself, but that's not the case. She started to tell me about different things about her. But the main thing she told me about was that she was in charge of coordinating the landing craft for the D-Day invasion. So it wasn't necessarily that she was the only person in charge of this, but she was. She was involved in coordinating the landing craft for the D-Day invasion 50 years earlier. And then she started telling me about her story as an 18-year-old girl, and how the officer used to make her take apart the guns, and how that prepared her to send the right supplies and eventually be part of coordinating the landing craft for the D-Day invasion. So she did that, and I'll come back to her in a little bit. Interesting thing is, about that whole day, the only thing I remember about that day is this little old lady and what she told me, and I'll come back to that towards the end. So, that'll make more sense later. Okay, fourth story. Fourth story is when I was in, this was in 2009, 2010, there was the H1N1 virus, and there weren't very many vaccines for it at the time, but I was part of a group called Medical Reserve Corps in the local county, and we were a bunch of volunteers, medical and non-medical. I was in a non-medical capacity, and once we got enough vaccines, what we had to do was administer those vaccines to people that were eligible to receive them. And at that time, it was basically pregnant women that were at the top of the list to receive the vaccine first at that time. So there were multiple clinics, but there were 3 mass vaccination clinics in Fairfax County, Virginia. Mass meaning for a large number of people, and it was at the government center. So at the first clinic, my job was on a team of about a little over a dozen people. It's probably more like 16. Was to receive the health forms that people filled out with questionnaires on whether they had any medical history, reactions to vaccines, and so on. And we had to get them to fill out these forms, and then also see if they needed to talk to a doctor if they had any questions. We had a team of about 20 doctors. Well, maybe it wasn't 20, but it was over 10 that they could talk to. And this was like a 12-hour day. My day started at 4 a.m. And that's the most number of pregnant women I've ever seen in my life. At 8 o'clock in the morning, before the doors opened, there was lines of hundreds of pregnant women outside. Now, pregnant were there. Well, it's a binary state, so they were binarily pregnant, but they're showing in various stages. And it was a beautiful sight to see. It was a bit sobering because, we were thinking about health and safety for them, and, the the babies that are carrying. And so there's a lot of compassion in the air, a lot of kindness, a lot of warmth, and yes, so certainly a lot of hormones that come with pregnancy. But all that has a real calming effect on just everybody. At the same time, people were very anxious about the H1N1 virus. So what our team did was very successful. I was the youngest person on the team in my 30s. Everyone else was pretty much retired. And the great thing was they were so experienced in life, and they just worked tirelessly walking in line with everybody, and they kept everybody calm. And I felt like I had one of the best teams. I wasn't officially in charge, but my team lead kind of put me in charge of that team. And I also worked as a gopher. I ran around, did whatever needed to be done. When a couple of parents enthusiastically grabbed their 2-year-old, or it wasn't quite 2, in the little car seat, the car seat flipped and the kid landed on his head and had to call an ambulance. Stuff happens. Anyway, kid was okay. They bounced back pretty well, apparently. Just a little bruise, Anyway, it was a successful clinic. Then there were 2 other clinics, so I'm going to speed up on this story and get back to the main thing. So the second clinic, I was paired up with a nurse who was actually administering the vaccines, and my job was to receive those medical forms as the last person to check it before somebody got their vaccine. And if they had any reactions, if the form indicated that they would have any reactions, we wouldn't give them the vaccine. So there's a lot of safety protocols built in. And I also kept track, I didn't have to, but I started to track how many people came into that room. There were about a dozen stations, meaning a nurse or a paramedic who could give the vaccine, and someone like myself, who's non-medical, who did the administrative, lighter tasks. So I kept track of how many people went to each station, and later I gave that to the leadership so they could, deal with flow control. And there was one very enthusiastic nurse who would always be saying, pick me, every time somebody came through the door. So she, with all her enthusiasm, was a vaccination influencer, I must say. She got a lot more people at her table getting vaccines. And yeah, some kids kind of freaked out. It wasn't just pregnant women. So at that stage, it was kids available at certain ages. It was still kids. All right, third max vaccination clinic. I was the guy in one of those vaccination rooms, right at the front door when people came in, and I told them which station to go to. And I just kind of looked at flow. So I have had some non-medical experience as a volunteer with administering, vaccinations with a larger group of people. I'm not an expert. I did receive a little bit more information on it from others, so I would learn more about vaccines. Anyway, okay, gonna go back to the little old lady in the mall. She was barely 5 foot tall, which in the metric system is still pretty short. So what's interesting is everything that she told me in the story was about herself, and it was not intrusive to anything about me. And the only thing I can remember about that day is her. I'll come back to this last thing about her in a moment. But okay, now I'm going to go to the 5th part, which is the day I got the vaccine. I'm standing in line. I'm not a volunteer at this point. I'm just another person in public who's receiving the vaccine. And the line snakes back and forth a lot, and then they move us to another section gradually. But before I got the shot, from the time I signed up to it to before I got it, I was asked 5 times if I was going to have any reactions to it in my medical history. First was online. I filled out a form online, lots of questions. I have any reactions, and I don't have any. So that was the first time. Second time was the day before, or the day of the vaccination. Again, filled it out online. That's just how they were doing it in this area. The third time I was asked was when I arrived at the mass vaccination clinic, which was the local mall, and in Dulles Town Center in Virginia, in Sterling. And the person at the door asked me basic questions. Was I sick? Did I have a headache, fever? How was I feeling? So, you know, they were good checks. Just make sure that there weren't going to be any reactions before I even got in the door. Then someone at a desk, after standing in line for a while, asked me similar sets of questions. Still okay? Move on to the next thing. And finally, it was the paramedic who actually gave me the shot. So that was the 5th check. So if anywhere in this process, the system, I would have been at risk, that would have been flagged, and I could have talked to a doctor. And, you know, if the advice would have been, don't get the vaccine, you know, take your chances, and, you know, follow these other things, you know, wear a mask, social distance, and hope when there's enough immunity in the public that you'll be okay. And, you know, seek this kind of help if you do get sick. Do these things. So I was fine. I got the vaccine, and I don't want to talk about how I responded to the vaccine, although it was fine. I typically have a certain reaction, and that's what I had. But it was ordinary. But I want to talk about the little old lady. See, sorry, hand was covering the camera. See that day, that little old lady was, she was there with her son, and she had this sense of peace about her. She was collected, she was grounded. She didn't get up, but she had the sense of peace about her. And that comes from someone who knows they did the right thing when it mattered. And she did the right thing repeatedly when she was an 18-year-old and so on, up to the D-Day invasion and beyond. And now she could talk about it. And she's been able to talk about it. See, she was really just giving me a gift that day. She was sharing what she did that was right. She came from the right place of kindness, of compassion, of love, of courage. And she gave me a gift by sharing her story with me. And I'm sharing it with you. Of that day in the mall, when I saw her, I don't remember anything else about that day. I don't remember what I ate. I don't remember what I was wearing. I don't remember where I went to shop for. I don't remember anything else except what she shared with me. And this is decades later. This is 50 years after World War II. And I'm sharing it now because of the COVID-19 vaccine. And how does a little old lady who was called to some sort of action relate to me getting the vaccine now or this video? It relates because there are always moments in our lives where we are called to some sort of action, to do something and not do something. And there are a lot of changes going on right now in the world. So much is changing. In America, while things are getting to normal, there's a clear sense that normal has changed. Things are familiar, but they're not the same. Things are different, and more things are going to change, and that is still happening. So even though I have a sense of relief and gratitude that I've received the vaccine, I know there's still a lot changing for me and many other people. I see that. I see it on other YouTube videos. I see it from other influencers. So many things are changing, and people aren't even aware of that. So we're not quite through it yet. If you're in America and you've received the vaccine, or another country you've received the vaccine, we're not through it just because we got vaccinated. Sure, we're more protected. We're more likely to be safer from it, and but this is a human to virus interface. This is that thing. Unlike World War II, which was not a virus in terms of an actual virus that way, that was a war between ideology and a whole bunch of other things I'm not even going to attempt to try to explain here. But this human to virus interface, this vaccine, this virus, this is the equalizer to all people around the world. Access to the vaccine is unequal, and I'm hoping that keeps improving. And so for those of us that have received the vaccine, that's one thing. There are billions of people that are a long way from receiving the vaccine. And the virus is going to mutate. It's been mutating. It'll come around. We're only through a certain wave if we're in America with this, but it isn't over for us. And it's not even started for many other people. And I just want everybody, wherever you are in the world, in America, around the world, I want everybody just to remember the few things we can control are choices to be kind, our choices to be compassionate, our choices to be loving, and our choice to have some courage. And those are the things that we can control. And that's one of the most human things about all of us. I've got a sense of some positive things changing in the world that are extraordinary, and I can't even put words to them because I'm not fully aware of them. I'm just partially aware of them. So I hope, whether you've received the vaccine or not, and especially for people that have received the vaccine already, that you remember that there are a lot more people that need us to still be compassionate, to still be kind, to try to do things that we can do. And I don't know what those things are. But in your heart, that's a choice you make. That 18-year-old girl in World War II, she had to make that choice. Long before the Normandy invasion. I was very impressed when I was standing in line at the logistics of how many people were getting vaccinated at that site, because I had worked those sites in the previous pandemic with the H1N1. I know how difficult that is. I was so impressed. To me, that was one of our finest moments in American history. To me, this is up there and needs to be recognized, like the Normandy invasion, like the landing on the moon, because that was hard to do. That was not easy. And what's the difference? Why would we treat a war against other people with guns and ships and tanks? Why do we treat that differently than this? Because of how it looks and what we've been taught to think about it. War is horrible. Now here's a piece in photography. I finally said I was going to bring some aspect into it. I think I said I was going to do that. We have pictures. I bet anybody, if you've heard of the Normandy invasion or not, or some other aspects of the war, you can just recall images, videos in your mind. You can hear sounds, but you can probably remember some photos. And so those the graphicness of it makes us think that it's more important. Well, in the United States, I think 500,000 people have died in 1 year from COVID-19. Of Americans that died in World War II, it was about 400,000. So how do we evaluate which life is more important? Every life's important. But there is a difference in how we see that and our perception of it and how we feel about it, because we don't see the pictures of it. We don't see things blowing up like we had in wars. But people died, and every life, everybody that died had someone that loved them, left some family behind, some friends. So let's not just think it's over. Let's be grateful if we receive the vaccines, and let's remember that a lot of other people are still waiting for that. And wherever you are in this, whether you've been vaccinated or not vaccinated, please keep whatever kindness, love, compassion, courage that you have, or you've seen others have, and let that grow and feed that. Because we've had a few positive things come out of us having those moments, like that little old lady I was telling you about. We've had some of that, but we've got a long way to go. But let's keep that up. And please recognize what a big lift getting all these vaccines out to everybody is. This is something we should be proud of that we're able to do. Vaccination development is not easy. It's really hard. It actually takes years typically. We should be proud that as a world, we've come together in so many ways to do this. We're not through it. It's not time to celebrate, but let's be aware of that and keep going. And our world is changing. We're in a gray zone. And in photography, gray is good. Middle gray is what we measure lighting for. And then whether we choose to express aspects of white or black or the multiple shades of gray between, which is where life is. It's not at the extreme of white or black or light and darkness. It's in gray. Gray is where we are. Maybe gray doesn't feel comfortable, but in photography, gray is great. We got a lot of gray. And that's a lot of opportunity. And this isn't only meant to like feel good in terms of talking about kindness, love, compassion, courage. We're changing, and some of that is scary, but we're also creating some new things because of those characteristics in ourselves that we didn't have. Well, we did have those, but we weren't doing that in the same way. Can we keep that up? Can we keep that up? Whatever we do, photography, not photography, whatever it is. The virus doesn't care who you are, where you are. You're a human anywhere in the world. And we've got a unique way of connecting now, better than we've had at almost any other time in history. This video from a guy who's walking in a park can be seen around the world, will be seen around the world. And I don't know how many people will see it or not. And I'm gonna wrap it up soon because I'm starting to feel like I'm rambling. But I wanted to share those 4 stories to talk about my vaccination experience. 18-year-old girl who, when she was surrounded by gray and didn't know what to choose, she did the right thing. 50 years later, she has a sense of peace about it because she did the right thing when it mattered. And she had a lifetime to celebrate that. My volunteer experience, short one in college, a more related one with the H1N1 virus, non-medical experience, and my observations while I was standing in line to get the vaccine, thinking, I am so proud that we got this done. And this time, I wasn't doing anything with it other than not trying to harm other people. And that meant doing my part, like many other people, to wear masks, socially distance, try and stay positive. So, thanks for listening. Be safe, everybody. I love you. I know this is a different video, but thanks for watching it. I'll catch you next time. Be safe. Lots of love.